have Arushi Nath. Please, I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Who loves exploring Earth and space using open data. She has participated in over 35 hackathons and won many of them, including the NASA SpaceApps COVID-19 Challenge, the NASA SpaceApps Challenge Toronto 2014, 2018, and 2019. Well, let's give a hand of applause for Arushi.
Thank you. Great, so I'm just going to share my screen and start presenting. So it's great to be here presenting at the Global Innovation Field Trip. So today I'll be talking about my observations of the Didymos asteroid system. So the DART mission, Double Asteroid Redirection Test mission, is a planetary defense test mission that was aimed at the asteroid Didymos. So just to be clear, neither Didymos or any other asteroid currently poses a threat to the Earth. This was just a test mission, but the goal of the mission was to change the orbital path of the moonlet revolving around Didymos. This mission successfully impacted the Didymos system on September 26th, but that was only the first part of the mission. The next part of the mission was to see if the orbital period of the system actually got changed. And actually, just a couple of days ago, NASA released information saying that the orbital period was changed by 32 minutes, which is over 25 times expected. There's also more analysis to be done, and lots of astronomers are actually right now doing analysis on this system. For example, lots of professional astronomers, especially all around the world, for example, Australia, South Africa, and Hawaii, are taking observations of the system. But there are also amateur astronomers which are observing it and posting their information using social media like Twitter. And these are citizen scientists who have either telescopes in their backyards or are renting telescope time from other big telescopes. And they're measuring three different things: observations of the Didymos system before impact, during impact, and after impact. So how do you measure the change in the brightness of the asteroid? Or how do you measure the photometric changes? So on telescopes, there's a camera attached to the telescope, which is looking at the photons coming towards the camera. And the more photons come towards a certain pixel on the camera, the brighter that pixel becomes. And looking at all the pixels calculated from the Didymos object, we can measure the total brightness of the asteroid. And measuring the brightness over several images can reveal the change in brightness of the asteroid. So I'm going to show you a short animation about the Didymos system. So you can see the main object and the moon revolving. And right now you're just going to see the moon going behind the main asteroid, which is why in the graph below you can see a small dip. And soon right after, the shadow and the object, the moonlet, is going to pass in front of the Didymos, as you've just seen, causing an even bigger dip in the asteroid, a light curve. So light curves can also reveal something else. They can also reveal the rotation period of the asteroid. Because asteroids, especially smaller ones, such as Didymos, don't have a big enough gravitational pull to make the asteroid circular, meaning that they might be slightly different shape. And as you can see in this image, you can see that as the asteroid is rotating, different parts of the object is visible. For example, at some point, one side of the object would be visible, which has the least surface area, meaning that the light captured from this asteroid would be less, while if it was the most surface area possible visible, then more of the asteroid will be visible and more light will be visible. And looking at these changes can reveal the rotational period of the asteroid. So that's exactly what I was looking at. So I have 7 main steps to find the rotational period of the asteroid. The first one is getting images of this asteroid. To do so, I used ground-based telescopes located all around the world, like in Australia and Chile. The mirror sizes of these telescopes had a very big range, ranging from 40 centimeters to over 2 meters. And getting observations from these telescopes were quite hard. I had to sometimes write proposals or gain memberships to access these telescopes. But even once I had access to telescopes, I still had to get a lot of knowledge to take an observation of this asteroid. Because I had to make sure first I knew where the asteroid was to point the telescope at the right position. And I needed very long observations of the asteroid system to generate a light curve. And it was always great to see that after the end of the day, I was able to successfully get an observation. As you can see in the animation right below, this is an example of one of my observations where I had to input the exact location I wanted the telescope to be at, and the filter I wanted to image the asteroid with, as well as the exposure time I want the camera to capture. And after getting all these parameters, I was able to get an observation of the system. When I got the images of the Didymos system, it came in FITS files, which contain the image as well as important metadata about the image, like the telescope it was taken, and the filters used, and the camera specifications. And all of these were very useful in the future steps of my analysis. One good example is plate solving. Plate solving is matching all the known objects in my image to stars, and this is important so that I can find exactly where the image is. And while plate solving, I need to use information from the FITS headers, such as the right ascension and declination coordinates of my image. And the next step was selecting an aperture for my asteroid, because to get the brightness of the asteroid, I first need to know what are the limits of the asteroid in the image. So I selected different apertures across different observations based on the object. And it was slightly challenging since if I selected a too big aperture, then I would include lots of background noise. But if I selected too small an aperture, I wouldn't select the full object. And I had to also select a second circle, which is the background noise, because there's always noise in my images, and I need to get a solid background of how much noise there was so I could subtract it from my observations. The next step was finding comparison stars. So why did I need to do this? This was important since observing conditions can change all across your observation. So it's important to find known object or stars, which we already know the brightness, so that those are like the fixed observations, so we can see the actual changes in the asteroid after looking at these. So not all stars are suitable to be comparison stars. Normally, I'm looking at stars that have a very constant brightness over time. So on the left, you can see 3 different graphs. The first two are obviously not suitable, since they either have a very high variance in magnitude or their magnitude changes in time. But the bottom one, you can see that it seems to be a good comparison star, since the star brightness stays the same over time. So normally in each image, I would select 4 to 7 comparison stars to get a good baseline data. So now I was able to get the photometry data of my asteroid. But while looking at several days of observations, it happens that because of the orbital changes, the magnitude of the asteroid system changes. But this is, for example, if the asteroid is coming closer to the Earth or further from the Earth. So I have to adjust for these changes, which is why I had to apply several parameters to my observations. And you can see the change before and after I applied the offsets. So as I mentioned slightly before, I had to generate light curves of the system, but one light curve is normally not enough, especially if it's a shorter duration. For example, my first observation was less than 2 hours, which was not enough to get a solid background of what my normal period of the Didymos asteroid is, which is why I combined data from several nights of observations to get a more accurate light curve. But even that isn't sometimes enough, which is why I've been collaborating with other astronomers, Daniel and Joaquin, to get more observations of the system. And I was able to get a rotational period of 2.2591, which is very accurate, since the expected orbital period, rotational period was 2.26 hours. And also, I was able to get an accurate amplitude. The amplitude is basically the change in the brightness over one duration of time. So like the maximum brightness it will reach and the lowest brightness it should reach. So the expected, it should be around 0.1. and I was able to get 0.109, which is very accurate again. Thank you. I also plan to take observations of the system after the impact, so I can measure what changes happened. I'll be presenting probably at the next gift about my post-impact observations. Thank you.
Wonderful presentation, Arushi. Wonderful presentation. And I was like, how old are you?
I'm actually 13, so I'm in grade 8.
We date next time in gift, we need to check children's ID card maybe. Because when they say they're this year old, I actually need to confirm that they are they. Because the kind of terms and the kind of research they're using, bravo kids, I am super impressed. Arushi, was it your school project sometime, or did you just opt it to present somewhere, or what was it?
Well, normally I'm really interested like in astronomy, science, and coding. So I've done several projects outside of my school just to use my knowledge to create projects. And when I heard about the DART mission, I thought this was an amazing opportunity to use my skills to try and measure the changes before and after the impact. So I just decided to create a project on it.
And were you doing it all alone, or were you associated with some of your fellows, or did you do it in your group, or maybe your teachers, or who was associated to you, just as an inspiration for everyone else as well?
That's a great question. So most of my project was done alone, but I received lots of help from other people. And like I mentioned, I collaborated with two other astronomers to get more information and more light curves of this asteroid to get a more accurate rotational period. So while I started on my own, I also ended up collaborating with several people along the way.
Wow.
Whoa.
Arushi, have you been in contact with Dr. Soto? Amara Soto?
No, I don't think, not yet, no.
You need to do that. She'll be a good contact for you.
Yeah, I'll definitely reach out to her.
Wow, your presentation was out of this world, if you know what I mean. I wouldn't be surprised that if in the future you're the one who discovers a new planet for humanity to live on.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask you a question.
Please give it to Sid first, because he really wants to have a new planet parent.
Yeah. So I'd like to ask you a question, because it seems like you really know your stuff when it comes to this topic. Do you see yourself in 10 years continuing all this research on otherworldly bodies?
That's a great question. And definitely I do see myself pursuing my interest in astronomy, coding, and so on, because like I've been interested in these subjects for the last 5-6 years now, and I definitely think I'll be continuing across the next 10 years.
But what was the beginning point? What was the inspiration behind it? I mean, some kind of childhood stories, bedtime stories, or the stars themselves? What was the actual inspiration for you?
That's a great question. Since I was small, I've been visiting the Interior Science Center, and where they show lots of exhibits, science exhibits, and they really got me fascinated. And at the same time, I've always loved looking at the sky. And I have a telescope at home, which I love observing through. And I think it's just like mixing those passions. Like I found my passions at a very young age. So I thought I'd continue working on them, and that's where it brought me today.
And what are some kind of other activities that you do maybe that support you in learning in the skills and the attributes and the attitudes that you require for this specific kind of research and interest?
That's a great question. So I'm also into robotics. Like I'm part of the robotics club at my school, where we basically make robots and code them. And I think it's just been like a process along the way, joining different clubs, getting mentorship from different people that have brought me to where I am today.
And what was your challenges? Oh yeah, Maria, come on.
That was a question I was wondering about. I mean, for an 8th grader to know what photons are, that's super impressive. So my question is, how do you connect with experts to get you to the level of understanding in detail that you are doing, that you're beyond the understanding of 8th grade science? So how do you connect with experts along the way to validate everything you're doing step by step?
Definitely. So I think the key is to having a strong baseline at first, like just try to start something based on what knowledge I already have, or if I need to know something, like look it up online. because I found out people are more eager to help you if you've already shown them something that you've already started, and then like they give tips, pointers, and that's actually happened to me several times. For example, I was able to talk the observational lead of a DART mission, Christina Thomas. And after I shared with her some of the projects I'd be doing, she gave me tips and pointers on what to do next.
Excellent.
And what were some challenges that you faced while you were doing this research?
That's a great question. And actually, I faced many challenges all across the way. One of the most challenging ones was actually while taking the observations of the asteroid system. And while taking these observations, I often found out that when I woke up in the morning to look at the observations, the asteroid was not in the field of view, or halfway through the observations, the asteroid left the field of view. So this really got me disappointed, and I learned to find ways or find other telescopes which had a bigger field of view, which would allow me to get continuous observations of these asteroids for a long time, or even just find the residential declination coordinates of the middle of the observation so that the asteroid will pass all throughout the image and not just half the image. And I think it's just really figuring these things out as I go along. Like I had lots of trial and error stuff.
Okay.
I wonder one thing. What does your room look like? What
Yeah,
does your room look like?
I wonder that too.
That's one thing I really want to know.
Well, to be honest, my room is just like a normal room bed, nothing exceptional.
Oh,
Why? I mean, I can perceive a big telescope or maybe stars on the sky,
Yeah,
and I don't
I
know
was
what
thinking
else.
that too. Like
Yeah.
maybe posters about the solar system or something like that.
Well, I
So
did
actually,
A big window where Arushi is
yeah,
standing
yeah,
next to it with the
The
telescope.
HR diagram on
Yeah,
the wall.
yeah.
exactly.
I'd like to ask a fun question.
sure.
So, do you ever want to go to space? And if you do, where is the first place you visit, or what's the first thing you want to do?
That's a great question. Definitely when I was younger, I really wanted to go to space. Now I still want to do subjects astronomy related, but I'm not sure if I would want to go to space. But that's still a possibility for me. But if I were to go to space, probably Mars, since it's a planet that we know so much about, yet no human has ever explored it yet. So it would be really an amazing opportunity.
And
So
you
what
do
are
all
your
the research.
aspirations? What are you thinking you want to do as an eighth grader right now? Like if you had to pick a career, what direction would you be going? Because you have so much, obviously, you're interested in a lot of different things.
That's a great question. So as you said, like this, I have definitely lots of opportunities that I could get to, like lots of subjects, astronomy, science, and so on. But I try not to think of a career path because often careers that are here now might not be there in the future. And there might be many new careers that come in the future because we're always like progressing. So I try to think not too that far ahead.
Good thinking.
Thanks.
I need to rebirth. I need to be reborn, Jake. I'm sorry. I was born at the wrong time and place. So I need to be reborn instantly. I don't know, Jake, what to do? Yeah.
I want a do-over also, please.
Yeah. This is wrong. This is all.
I feel like I was the laziest child in the entire world after getting into these kids. I mean, we had choices of ballet, maybe softball if you were lucky where you lived. Soccer wasn't even in the United States, or what other people call football. And that's about it. And Girl Scouts and things like that. But they just didn't have much when this 62-year-old was a kid. So I blame it on that. I might have been a brilliant student like Arushi and Sid and Perrin and Alex had I had those opportunities. But a do-over would be okay.